It being 7 o'clock, as chair of the Exeter Planning Board, I find due to the state emergency declared by the governor as a result of COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. On March 12th, 2021, a public notice of this meeting was posted to the town website and on the bulletin board of the town offices at 10 Front Street. As provided in the public notice, the public may access the meeting online and via phone. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting shall be done on a roll call vote. And let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during the meeting and who that person is, son, daughter, spouse, etc., which is required under the right to know law. So I'll start off. I'm Langdon Plummer. I'm chair of the Exeter Planning Board. And let's go to Aaron Brown. Could you turn your microphone on, Aaron? Same problem as before. Okay. Aaron Brown is at his house, excuse me, by himself, and he's trying to figure out how to get to us verbally. Pete Cameron.
Did you call me?
Yes. Are you here, sir?
I'm here by myself.
Okay.
Pete Cameron.
Thank you. Gwen English.
Gwen English, and I am currently in the room by myself.
Okay. Jen Martell.
Jen Martell, and I'm in the room alone.
And John Gruder.
John Gruder in the room alone.
And our alternates, Nancy Belanger.
Nancy Belanger in the room alone. Alternate.
Tyner.
Robin Tyner, just me and my dog.
And Mark Dottori.
Mark Detour, and I'm here alone.
And Pete Steckler.
Hi, Pete Steckler. I am alone.
Thank you, Pete. All right. First thing on our agenda this evening are the minutes of March 11th, 2021. So I'll open these to the board to make comments or suggestions, or I'm always open to a motion for approval. We usually look at them first. Any comments regarding these minutes? Somehow the operators of the Zoom tonight do not have everybody on the screen at once. I'm wondering if you could make an adjustment on that. I kind of depend on being able to see my board members.
Lang, that's on you, I believe. That's, are you watching you got to hit view and gallery view instead of speaker view, I think.
There you go.
Yep, that's correct.
Oh, God. No, thank you so much. It's tough getting old. I would open to a motion to approve the minutes.
Test.
Also move.
And is there a second?
Second.
And we hear you, Aaron.
Yes, Aaron, we hear you.
So how about a vote then? That we approve the minutes as presented. I'll start off with Pete Cameron. Pete?
Aye.
And Aaron Brown.
Yes.
Good, sound. Molly Cowan?
Yes.
Gwen English?
Yes.
Jen Martell?
Yes.
John Gruder?
Aye.
And I also vote yay. So those are approved unanimously. Thank you very much to our scribe. Doing a great job.
Good job.
I think once again, Daniel should be
Promoted?
coming on for the condition of these minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel. New business public hearings, and we're going to have a continued public hearing on the application of McFarland Ford Realty Trust, the site plan review and wetlands conditional use permit for the proposed construction of a vehicle storage lot on the property located at 110 Holland Way. Subject properties are located in C2 Highway Commercial Zoning District and identified as tax map parcel number 51-14-1 and 51-17. And it is planning board case number 2021. And I know we received materials that we had discussed in our packet. So, Dave, would you like to start us off?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As stated, the applicant is seeking a site plan and wetlands conditional use permit for the proposed construction of a vehicle storage area. The applicant submitted supporting documents dated January 15th, February 2nd. Revised plans and supporting documents were submitted on March 4th and were reviewed by the board at the March 2021 meeting. The application was tabled at that time, and the applicant was requested to return to the board to tonight's meeting with a landscaping plan and to provide further documentation addressing condition number 2 of the CUP application, alternative design. It was suggested that the applicant also contact Highway Superintendent Jay Perkins to discuss any proposed improvements within the town right of way. When I wrote the memo, I didn't have the plans, but since we did get the plans submitted, they've provided a landscape plan. Also, the other thing with the lighting, they did revise the lighting to shut off at, it was 10 p.m. shut off. Yeah, okay. And also, to address the wetland criteria where no feasible alternative exists, they did reach out to DOT, who sent an email that was in your packets as well, that said District 6 agrees that your proposal to create a road internally to access a new parking lot is the safest option from access management perspective. I mean, I agree with that, because if you go from Holland Way, you're opening up, you have to go from the McFarland Ford site to this, you have to enter a public highway, whereas you don't. So from a traffic standpoint, from a traffic management standpoint, access management standpoint, you always prefer less curb cuts. The board will have to weigh that against, the wetland impact versus traffic impact, but there definitely will be a traffic impact if another design, its own roadway was provided to that. And then there wouldn't be any internal connection to McFarland Ford from the parking lot. Yeah. They did provide a landscape plan. They have some landscaping in the proposed along the front as requested by the board, and they ran it by Jay Perkins at DPW, and he recommended using those tree bags just for the first year for any of the deciduous trees to make sure they stay alive. But we also have a standard condition of approval that any dead or dying vegetation on the plan, be replaced the next growing season as long as the site plan remains valid. So that will cover us there as well. And that's all they are requesting a waiver for the landscaping for parking areas and new roadways. They hadn't provided any landscaping, but they'll explain the extent they still need that waiver. And I provided motions for your convenience for both the conditional use permit and the site plan. And I have suggested conditions of approval should the board take action this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Lane, are you ready to pick up from where we were?
I think we are ready. I think.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Thank you for having us once again. Hopefully you'll like the landscape plan that we have that I think Eric from Jones and Beach is ready to present.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. Dave just gave an excellent summary. He hit about half my bullet points, which is great. So I'll just do a quick review. So everything Dave said was spot on. So we met with you guys 2 weeks ago, and we had 3 major points that we wanted to hit with the board tonight. The DOT conversation, the lighting change, and the landscape. The DOT letter, Mr. Sharples touched on that. DOT does agree that the internal connection is the safest position to go with. I would also like to let the board know that we do have an approved wetland permit. Well, we just got that in. The next point I wanted to hit on was that lighting. I'll share my screen real quick so we can take a look at that here. So for lighting, we did want to adjust our note. Note 13 has been added. We will be turning the lights off completely at 10 and then switching to a motion activated lighting system, primarily for security reasons. There's going to be a lot of inventory out there. A lot of money is going to be on this lot. So that's critical for security purposes. The main item we wanted to make sure the board saw was the landscape plan. So we did work with a landscape architect on this. Let me just pull that up real quick. And we did add landscaping to not only the right of way of Holland Way, but also we wanted to try to add some additional trees along the perimeter of the parking lot and add some landscape features running along Holland Way and also where that treatment swale is. That's a really good area for nice landscaping as you pull into McFarland Ford. And McFarland Ford's committing to taking over responsibility for this area. They plan on maintaining the landscaping, getting nice grass to grow, mowing it regularly, and have a nice entrance as you come down Holland Way into McFarland Ford. The trees we went with were maples and birch, as well as some other landscape features, other plants. They're all New England native plants, which is good. Mr. Sharples hit on the watering gators. That was one of the things that the landscape architect recommended that we agree with. They're a watering system at the base of the tree for the first growing season. And that really increases the chances that the trees are going to survive, establish themselves, and be really nice features for the property. So let's see here. If I wanted to, those were all the big points I wanted to hit. I will open it to the board for any comments or questions they have at this time.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me. Anybody have comments or questions? Don't see any hands right now.
Jen Martell, Pete Steckler have their hand up.
Okay, let's start with Jen, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say that the planting plan, I think, looks great. Don't really have any comments. I just wanted to say thank you for putting this together in short notice and also for agreeing to the applicant to take over maintenance of that edge, because I think as a lot of people commented last week, that edge probably doesn't really get maintained very well, and it's pretty wild looking right now. So it'll be great to have a nice landscaped area there. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback.
Pete.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I appreciate the applicant following up with DOT. I mean, I guess I feel like you kind of went halfway there because you still haven't demonstrated that there's no feasible alternative to wetland impacts. And I get that this is a balancing act between safety issues and impacts to our natural resources, but there is a way to, seemingly a way to avoid impacts to these wetlands through a curb cut. My guess is your, daily number of trips is pretty low. So there's not going to be a lot of traffic pulling in and out of here. And the regulations are very clear, especially that condition number 2. It doesn't sound like you followed up with the Planning and Community Assistance Bureau. And I guess the question is given that this is is in the urban compact section, is it a DOT question, or is it a town question, or is it a both question? Maybe it's not an issue for other board members, but as a advocate for wetland protection, it just seems like you haven't clearly demonstrated that there's no feasible alternative here to not impact these wetlands. So, thanks.
Thank you, Pete.
Pete, thank you for your feedback on that. I do understand where you're coming from. The main thing with DOT, and we work with DOT quite a bit. Safety is the number one priority for DOT. A lot of times in situations like this, when they're weighing the benefits of going a different direction, going a different route, wetland impacts, their primary focus is safety. And DOT ultimately, when it comes to these sorts of things, kind of has the final say. I just had a DOT driveway application with them, and I flipped my driveway to the other side of the property, and it was a sightline issue, and there were a lot of good reasons to have it where we initially designed it, but safety is the ultimate goal. Working with DOT, I know that if we have a wetland permit in place for a crossing and they can prevent another driveway cut on a limited access highway, it would be extremely difficult to go down that road. With limited access highways, you need to touch base with the governing council of New Hampshire. That's a lot of times can be a multi-year process. And if that was an option that I thought we could accomplish, that would be something we could pursue. But just from my experience, that would take years to try to acquire it, and there's no guarantee that we could acquire it. It's a difficult thing to try to get from DOT.
Are you talking about a driveway permit, Eric?
Yeah, the example I gave was a driveway permit.
Okay, because on this road, it's in the urban compact.
Understood.
Okay, they don't issue driveway permits.
Yeah, that was just an example of DOT focusing on safety. I understand this isn't a driveway permit situation, but just as an example, they're safety focused with vehicles entering the road, exiting the road, sight distance. Those are their main focuses. And Jim Hewitt's looking at this as this is the safest option for a limited access highway, would be to limit traffic to one driveway. And if you can get to that driveway and you already have a wetland permit in place, that's going to be the position of the DOT.
Okay, thank you. Gwen, I see your hand is up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I always appreciate Pete's comments and concerns and his focus on protecting wetlands. So I thank him for being an advocate for that. And I appreciate the answer that we just got from the applicant on providing another alternative for this. But the other thing that I think might be an issue in trying to create an access off Holland Way is the concern that I would have about your semis coming in potentially loaded with cars. And you said that you wouldn't be able to take those into the parking area itself. So it seems like you would potentially end up parking on Holland Way to unload those, which would be a problem and a safety concern. And maybe there would have been another way to do it, but that was the thought that came to my mind initially. So that's my thought on the alternative access to this parking area. I want to just real quick circle back to Jen's comment about the landscaping, and I really appreciate the fact that you got a landscape architect to look at this and design a plan with some native plantings. And I think this will really enhance this area. And you've got kind of a captive audience of people coming out of Hannaford's and looking at your lot and seeing nice landscaping. I think that's a plus too. So thank you for that. And I just have one quick question, and it pertains to the lighting. You said that you have on your other sites that you have motion detectors, and I just wonder, on those sites, do you also to shut the lights off at 10 and then activate the motion detectors, or are those on for a longer period of time and lights shut off maybe earlier? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I apologize. Sorry, Jim. We don't have motion sensors yet at Exeter. We have them at Hampton Ford.
Right, that's what I wondered.
Yeah, the lights go, I think it's at 10 o'clock in Northampton, the lights, 10 or 11, the lights go off completely. And then as soon as someone comes into the lot, then, they have a different organized lot over there. As soon as they drive straight down, there's a bank of lights that kind of illuminates as you drive down. So it's easy to see if someone's there, an odd hour of the day.
Okay.
I'm going to put motion sensors around the rest of the lot. That's the game plan. Right now they dim, but this is going to get turned all the way off over here in this new area.
Okay. I was just curious.
Thank you.
I couldn't remember the details from the other town. Wow, but so this is basically the same concept as the other property. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Gwen. Excuse me. Anyone else? Is there any public here tonight, Dave?
Yes, there's one attendee, and I will. If you want to speak, just hit the raise hand function, and we'll call on you. I don't know if they're here for this one or the next application, so.
Sure.
But they do not have their hand up.
Okay. Any other questions the board has? Otherwise, I'll close the public session and we'll deal with the other items on the agenda here. Seeing none or hearing none, I'll close the public session, and we need to get back to let's see, as a waiver for landscape parking and new roadway motion.
Essentially what this waiver still needs, because before they didn't really, they had some remaining plantings around, but they've added landscaping around the parking, but they would require every 15 spots requires a landscaped island, which this still would need a waiver from that.
Okay. Eric, would you like to lead the charge on that and
talk
absolutely. About that?
Absolutely. I know we've touched on this a couple times. The waiver, as Mr. Sharple stated, now it's more dialed into the fact that we don't have adequate internal landscaping with the the storage lot itself. So that's now the focus of the waiver. I think we've made a lot of progress in the right direction regarding landscaping. And I think we have a nice balance now of nice landscaping, adding some trees around the perimeter of the parking lot, and coming a little closer to the spirit of the regulation. The waiver is being requested for the fact that this storage lot it's a very compact, tight layout to reduce impact to the buffer area. So to do that, we wanted to park as many cars as we could in the smallest area possible. One of the driving factors of porous pavement, it does provide some reduction in heat, specifically with stormwater temperatures. That's one of the nice benefits to porous pavement. So some of the adverse effects of large amounts of pavement are mitigated with the fact that porous pavement is used. And I think we've tried to come as close as we could to the spirit of that regulation by adding perimeter trees to the landscape design, as well as trying to maintain as much vegetation as possible along the perimeter of the storage lot. A lot of those trees in that area, just outside the area of disturbance, are nice, tall, old growth trees. I think we're going to see a lot of shading in the morning and afternoons on this lot to help keep temperatures down. So I think we have made some good progress on that waiver, and we still maintain and respectfully request a waiver for that specific regulation of internal landscaping on the storage lot.
Okay. Dave, do we have any specific standards we need to review as we do with wetland waivers? Criteria, I should say.
Well, landscape waivers are just governed by section 13.7 and the 5 criteria.
Okay.
Should have those in your handbook toward the end of the site plan subregs, section 13.7.
Okay. Let me go find those right here. Maybe Aaron's got his handy.
I have them handy.
We have a cooking malfunction. We have alarms going off at the house.
If you want me to read them, Mr. Chairman, I can certainly do that.
Sure, let's do that.
Okay, 1, the granting of the waiver will not be detrimental to the public safety, health, or welfare or injurious to other property. You want me to just read all 5?
Well, we're going to ask Eric to respond to those.
Oh, okay.
So.
Sure, Mr. Chairman.
Why don't you take it? We'll take it one at a time. So, Eric, just so you can stay on the topic and not get confused between numbers.
Absolutely. I'm kicking myself because I did last meeting hit each one of these points.
Yes.
And my notes from last meeting are eluding me. But Mr. Sharples, if you want to go point by point, I can give a verbal response to each one, if that would be sufficient.
Yep, that'll be fine.
Okay. Yeah, I just said the first point. I'll repeat it. The waiver will not be detrimental to the public safety, health, or welfare or risk to other property.
Yeah. So for public safety, I think is the main point on that one. The main thing to look at here is this is a storage lot off the road for employee use only. We're not allowing the public or customers to enter this storage area. So safety, I think, is pretty high for this storage lot. And I don't think that there would be any public safety adverse effects for not having landscape islands within the parking lot.
Okay, number 2, Dave.
Number 2, the condition upon which the request for a waiver is based are unique to the property for which the waiver is sought and are not applicable generally to other property.
Yeah, I would also, I would touch on again the fact that this is kind of a unique case. This isn't a typical retail parking lot where you have people coming and going from a standard retail use you'd see in town. This is a highly compact storage facility with double stack parking for employees to move inventory in and out. So I think in regards to that part of that criteria, this is a unique use, which is kind of warranting a little bit of flexibility on the regulation that we're requesting a waiver on.
Thank you. Number 3, Dave?
Because of the particular physical surrounding shape or topographical conditions of the specific property involved, a particular hardship to the owner would result as distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the strict letter of the regulations are carried out.
Yep. So the driving force of the layout and the style of storage lot that we're going on was really started with the Conservation Commission for the town. And we really were very cognizant of the prime wetland to the rear of the storage lot. And we really wanted to design something that minimized the impact to that buffer and really condensed the lot down. So in regards to the surrounding area, that was one of the main driving forces for this kind of layout. Just trying to be cognizant of the buffer, the wetland, and keeping the impact to an absolute minimum in this area.
Okay, Dave, number 4.
The granting of the waiver will not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the regulations.
I'm sorry, Mr. Troubles, can you repeat that? I didn't catch that one.
The granting of the waiver will not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the regulations.
Yeah, so I touched on that a little earlier. I think we've made a lot of great progress from the last meeting. We touched base with the landscape architect, and we were able to quickly come up with a plan to present to the board where we showed a lot of progress in regards to plantings, landscaping, making nice, clean, green areas visually, and also for the benefit of having more greenery, more plantings and along the perimeter of the parking lot. So I think we really tried to stick with the spirit of the regulations by adding the landscape plan and get as close as we could to them, with also maintaining the density on this compact storage lot that we were looking for.
Okay.
Finally, the waiver will not in any manner vary the provisions of the zoning ordinance or master plan, and I usually chime in on that one because it is not in the zoning ordinance to have any interior landscaping, nor it is addressed in our master plan. So I would recommend that condition has been satisfied.
Okay. Board and members of the board have a question? Aaron, your hand's up?
Hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm confused on why we need this waiver.
Because every 15 parking spots, you have to have a landscape island. You have to break it up. These have, I don't know how many, but a lot more than 15.
The island. It's the island issue, Dave?
The landscape islands. You can't have the regulations don't want to see this long, continuous row of parking without some relief from a deciduous tree and so forth. So every 15 spaces, you have to have one, like a space, taken up by a landscape island.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Because I actually think that the plan is really appropriate for the site. I think the applicant has done a lot of work on it. I think between the porous pavement and the modified landscaping and the modified maintenance that they're willing to do there, I think this is a very reasonable request.
I agree with that.
Thank you. I'm open to a motion.
Make it running if you like.
Okay.
All right. Landscaping for parking areas / new roadways motion. After reviewing the criteria for granting waivers, I move that the request of McFarland Ford Realty Trust, Planning Board case number 21-2 for a waiver from section 9.7.5 of the site plan review and subdivision regulations to provide adequate landscaping. I want to say be approved because I don't think we were adding conditions to that part. So I'm going to say be approved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Peter. Any discussion? Let me see if there's any hands up here. Don't see any. Okay, I'll call for the vote. Let's start with John Gruder, please. John? Jen Martell?
Yes.
Gwen English?
Yes.
Molly Cowan?
Yes.
Pete Cameron?
Yes.
Aaron Brown?
Yes.
And I vote yay. So motion carries. Next, we're on conditional use permit, wetland motion. Let's see, we need to go through the criteria again. I thought this was all set up in the paperwork.
Lang, can I ask a question on the applicant?
Sure. I'm trying to find I thought we had all this. Go ahead.
Eric or Chris, can you share any conditions of the wetlands permit that you've been granted already? Are there any?
I can pull that up and take a look real quick.
Laid out there.
While he's looking that up, I'll go over this. There was suggested conditions. The Conservation Commission recommended approval. They did recommend 4 things. One of them has been addressed. They did submit a wetlands functions and values. So 1, the inclusion of and adherence to the porous pavement maintenance specifications in the stormwater maintenance agreement. You could put that as a condition. I think it's a good idea. I mean, we also have the same condition in the planning board about stormwater maintenance in the annual reporting requirement, but it doesn't have to be duplicative on the CUP. Second, written documentation. Oh no, that was the one that was addressed. Excuse me. Second, the addition of an identifying sign to indicate the presence of porous pavement on site.
Yeah.
And the execution of a deed restriction containing use limitations and public access guarantee equivalent to that provided in the adjacent Route 88 connector easement, book 4326, page 1590, and attached here too. Those are the recommended conditions from the Conservation Commission.
Mr. Chair, we don't have any objections to any of those conditions from the Conservation Commission.
Okay. So are we ready to deal with the conditional use permit?
No, I didn't get any feedback on my question regarding the wetlands permit.
Yep, okay. I just located it. I'll share my screen with you real quick. So there are quite a few. I'll pull these up right here. So we can take a look.
Wetlands permit. right in here then.
So with the wetland permit, this is something that we will have on site and will be provided to the contractor prior to the start of construction. These will be reviewed prior to us getting into any kind of earth moving activities. So these will be reviewed. The contractor will be aware of them. Some of these, like touching base on fuel, heavy equipment, these sorts of things. This will be posted on site with all the information we have on maintenance, operation and maintenance manual. This will be included in that packet, and the contractor will be made aware of what he needs to do within the wetland disturbance and within the wetland permit.
Is that what you were looking for, Aaron?
It is. Thanks a lot, Eric. I really appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who's going to lead the charge on the conditions of this? Is it Dave going to read them off again and Eric addresses them? Or?
Yeah, let's do that again, I think. So Dave, if you can get your script out.
Defer to the applicant and his conditional use permit.
Okay.
He can pull that up, and he's got.
Yep. We'll grab the.
Can address those.
Yep. Just a second here. I apologize. Just want to make sure I'm grabbing the right file here.
I was looking for that one. All right, good.
There we go. So, Mr. Chair, I can go through these. I can go through these point by point, or I could leave this up for the board to review. Either way is fine with me.
Well, why don't you go through that for us, please?
Sure. So, conditions 9.1.6b. Prior to the issuance of a conditional use permit, the planning board shall conclude or make part of the record compliance with the following criteria: that the proposed use permit in underlying zoning district. That is correct. We are an allowed use within the C2 highway commercial. Primary property is a vehicle storage lot, which is an allowed use. Item 2, following coordination with the Exeter Conservation Commission, the storage lot design has been reduced to the best extent practical to minimize impacts to the buffer. Item 2 was no alternative design which does not impact the wetland or wetland buffer, or which has less detrimental impact to the wetland or wetland buffer is feasible. We had a lot of coordination with the Conservation Commission on this. We did have a larger layout initially, and getting some great feedback from the Conservation Commission, we were able to come to an agreement on a layout we all were happy with. Wetland scientist has provided an impact evaluation that includes function and values to the wetland, an assessment of potential project-related impacts, and concluded to the best extent feasible, the proposed impact is not detrimental to the value and function of the wetlands or the greater hydrologic system. Mr. Gove, who has been great through this process, is our wetland scientist. He went through this extensively. I believe he provided functions and values reports to the board at one point. He went into great detail about these wetlands with the Conservation Commission. I know he touched base with this board briefly. Item 4, that the design, construction, and maintenance of the proposed use will, to the extent feasible, minimize detrimental impact on the wetland and wetland buffer. Our response there is the project proposes to use porous pavement. We're proposing a treatment swale, natural perimeter for erosion control measures. We added a lot of maintenance, operation maintenance, cleaning measures for the porous pavement to make sure that works very well for the years to come. And we did try to minimize the impact to the buffer to the best extent practical. Item 5, that the proposed use will not create a hazard to the individual or public health, safety, or welfare due to the loss of wetlands, the contamination of groundwater, or other reasons. We did our best on this one to keep the wetland impact to a minimum. We crossed at the choke point. We kept our impacts to the buffer as small as we possibly could. Our written response here is wetland buffer will be primarily the porous pavement, which is true, which will filter and infiltrate direct rainfall. And as I touched on before, that is the narrowest point we could cross, trying to keep the impact to a minimum. Item 6, the applicant may propose an increase in wetland buffers elsewhere on site that surround the wetland of equal or greater size and of equal or greater functional value than the impacted wetland. So the big one I would want to touch on for this is the deed restriction that we're proposing to put in place for the 18.7 acres that is to the rear of the proposed storage lot. So that is locking up a large part of this prime wetland, and it will not be able to be developed. You can't clear it. There's a lot of language in there to limit that and really protect and maintain that wetland.
Eric, do you want me to read any of that language, or you good with that?
If you want to touch on some of the high points of that deed restriction, sure, that'd be great.
The deed restriction has 3 main points. That 18.7 acres will be retained in perpetuity as open space, free from residential, industrial, or commercial activities, for the purpose of protecting the natural ecosystem and habitats, and passive, non-motorized outdoor recreation by the general public. Number 2 is no removal, mining, or excavation of material, no dumping or injection of material of any kind, nor may any improvements can be made. They're limited to those in support of non-commercial passive outdoor recreation, and only when not detrimental to the purposes of this deed restriction. And number 3, the town of Exeter, acting by and through its Conservation Commission, shall have the right, but not the obligation, to inspect the property for compliance with the terms of this deed restriction.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Going back into the conditions here, item 7, in cases where the proposed use is temporary or where construction activities disturb areas adjacent to the immediate use, the apparent use included a restoration proposal revegetating any disturbed area within the buffer with the goal to restore the site as nearly as possible to its original grade and condition following construction. That's a real big point with our design, where we're trying to, once we install the porous storage lot, getting back to existing grade as soon as possible. Erosion control will be around the entire perimeter. All disturbed area is going to be brought back to a vegetative state at the earliest possible time, and really trying to keep the impact in this buffer a minimum, and all disturbed areas, once everything is set to finished grade, getting loam down, getting that seeded, getting these plants in, and really trying to get those green areas up and operational and looking nice and functioning properly as soon as possible. And item 8, this one is basically just stating that all required permits shall be obtained. The main one here is the wetland permit, which we are happy to report to the board that we have secured an approval from NHDES.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I'm open to a motion.
Gwen English has her hand up.
Gwen? Gwen?
I have a mouse that's starting to give out on me here, so sorry. I just have a question. I'm a little embarrassed that I don't remember whether it was this applicant or a previous one. What are the erosion control measures that you're using? What materials are you using during construction just to protect the wetland?
Absolutely. So we're proposing standard construction silt fence along the perimeter of disturbed areas. So when construction begins, the first thing that's going to be put down is silt fence. And we have a detail within our plan set. We also, when silt fence is installed, we always will check in and make sure that it's installed properly, that it's towed into the soil and set appropriately. So what we're proposing on this site is standard construction erosion silt fence.
Okay. It must have been a previous applicant. There was a material that they had proposed and there were some concerns about that, and it had been changed to something that was a little more organic. And I was trying to remember if it was this application or not. It was another one, but that's fine. Thank you for that. I'm sorry that I got you confused.
No problem at all.
I appreciate your.
Let me follow. I understand that comment. Are you using any rolled erosion control blankets on this, Eric?
I don't believe we have any proposed. We do have details for those types of products if needed, but I don't believe we're using them because all of the slopes that we're proposing on the property are 3-to-1 or flatter, which typically we can just get away with loaming and seeding. And once that vegetation takes hold, it's perfectly stable. The one caveat I would put to that is for right where we're crossing the wetland, it gets really narrow. And for that area, we have the shoulder, but then we drop at a 1-to-1 slope. So for that area, we're proposing a riprap slope, just as we come into that tight corridor. And then as we open back up, we can transition back to 3-to-1 slopes.
Yeah, I think when maybe, because we talked about when you use that erosion control matting, it needs to be biodegradable because sometimes it just stays there for years. The plastic stuff stays there for a very long time, but I don't believe it's being used on this site.
Yeah,
no, it's not proposed.
That was it, Dave. It was something that was biodegradable.
Yeah.
Thank you. So you're comfortable with this, Dave?
Yeah, they're not using that material.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Gwen. Anybody else? Well, I'm open to a motion then for the conditional use permit.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Gwen.
It's Gwen. After reviewing the criteria for a wetlands conditional use permit, I move that the request of McFarland Ford Realty Trust, Planning Board case number 21-2 for a conditional use permit be approved. And do we want to add the conditions as laid out by the Conservation Commission?
Are you nodding yes there, Dave? I would recommend it. Yes.
Okay. Yes.
The three conditions as I outlined earlier.
Reviewed by a town planner. Yep. Okay. Thank you, John. Moved and seconded. Any questions? All right. I'm going to call the vote. Oh, let's start with Molly Collin. Molly?
Oh, aye.
Thank you. Gwen?
Aye.
Jen Martell?
Aye.
John Gruder?
Aye.
Aaron Brown?
Yes.
Excuse me, Pete Cameron?
Yes.
And I vote yes. That's unanimous vote. Okay. Are there any conditions that you might have for the site plan motion, Dave? You must have the standard ones.
I do. I think it's all, we have 9 standard conditions, and I think that's it. The 9 standard conditions, but I will read them for, I don't know how many times, 100.
Oh, well, read them. We'd like to hear them.
No, I know. I was just saying, I think I've read these a lot. Number 1, an electronic as-built plan with details acceptable to the town shall be provided prior to the use of the parking area. This plan must be in a DWG or DFX file format and an NAD 1983 state plane, New Hampshire F5PS 2800 feet coordinates. 2, a pre-construction meeting shall be arranged by the applicant and his contractor with the town engineer prior to any site work commencing. The following must be submitted for review and approval prior to the meeting. The stormwater pollution prevention plan, if applicable. And 2, a project schedule and construction cost estimate. Number 3, all comments in the Underwood Engineers Inc. letter dated February 19th, 2021, and the TRC comment letter dated February 22nd, 2021 shall be addressed to the satisfaction of the town planner prior to signing the final plans. 4, third-party construction inspection fees shall be paid prior to the scheduling of the pre-construction meeting. 5, the stormwater operations and maintenance plan inspection report and the stormwater management operations and maintenance manual dated March 1, 2021 shall be completed and submitted to the town engineer annually on or before January 31st. This requirement shall be an ongoing condition of approval. 6, all outdoor lighting, including security lights, shall be downlit and shielded so no direct light is visible from adjacent properties and or roadways. 7, all landscaping shown on the plan shall be maintained and any dead or dying vegetation shall be replaced no later than the following growing season as long as the site plan remains valid. This condition is not intended to circumvent the revocation procedures set forth in state statutes. And 8, if determined applicable by the Exeter Department of Public Works, the applicant shall submit the land use and stormwater management information about the project using the PTAP online municipal tracking tool. The PTAP submittal must be accepted by DPW prior to the pre-construction meeting. And finally, number 9, a restoration and erosion control surety in a mountain form reviewed and approved by the town planner in accordance with section 12 of the site plan review and subdivision regulations shall be provided prior to any site work. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to make the motion with all those conditions? Which are normal.
Mr. Chair? Go for it, John.
Go for it, John.
All right. I move that the request of McFarland Ford Realty Trust Planning Board case number 21-2 for site plan approval be approved with the conditions outlined by the town planner.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Pete. Cameron, second?
I did.
Yes, I heard you. Yeah. Would you like to start the vote then, Pete?
Yes.
All right. Gwen?
Yes.
John Gruder?
Yes.
Aaron Brown?
Yes.
Molly Cowan?
Yes.
Jen Martell?
Yes.
And I vote yes. It's approved.
Thank you, members of the board. We really appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you for your thoroughness and your use of the porous pavement.
Thank you again. We appreciate it.
Okay. Next, application of Daniel T. and Karen M. Snook for a lot line adjustment between properties located at 29 Ashbrook Road and 57 Hampton Road. Septic properties are located in the R2 Single Family Residential Zoning District, tax map parcels number 90-11 and 90-8. It's planning board case number 21-3. Is it ready to be heard, Dave? We need a motion to accept this application.
You do need a motion, and I do recommend that it's complete for review purposes.
Okay, I need a motion, please.
So moved.
That you, Gwen? No.
That was me, Jen.
Oh, it's Jen. Okay, Jen, thank you.
Sorry. Our voices sound alike, I guess.
Yes, would you like to second that, Gwen?
Sure.
Okay,
I second
seconded. Vote. Aaron Brown.
Yes.
Pete Cameron.
Yes.
Molly Cowan.
Yes.
Gwen English.
Yes.
Jen Martell.
Yes.
John Gruder.
Yes.
And yes, I vote yes. So, Dave, you can start us off on this, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is seeking a lot line adjustment between their property located at 29 Ashbrook Road and the abutting property located at 57 Hampton Road, owned by ChemReal 2 LLC. The proposed lot line adjustment will allow for the conveyance of 1 acre of lot area from the ChemReal property to be transferred and combined with the existing 0.56 acre parcel at 29 Ashbrook Road. Subject properties are located in the R2 Single Family Residential Zoning District. The applicant submitted the lot line adjustment plan and supporting documents dated March 2nd, 2021, and were enclosed in your packet. There was no TRC meeting or TRC review. However, the materials have been reviewed by the code enforcement officer, Doug Eastman, and found them to be in compliance with the zoning regulations. Natural resource planner, Kristen Murphy, has requested that the prime wetland boundary and its 100-foot buffer be indicated on the plans in accordance with section 6.6.2.4L of the board's site plan review and subdivision regulations. She also noted it would be helpful to notify the applicant of the additional regulations that apply under 9.1 wetlands conservation of our zoning regulation. And looking at the plan, just to get a better understanding of the big picture, because it only showed like a part of the plan and you couldn't see the big lot that ChemReal owns. I did create an aerial showing the entirety of the larger lot. And you'll note that the lot has frontage on Hampton Road and is an existing commercial use. I do have suggested conditions of approval. There's no waivers being requested, and I will read the conditions of approval if the board gets to that point. Thank you.
And do we have somebody that's presenting this tonight?
Hi, everyone. That's me. I'm Kat. I'm from Millennium Engineering. I'm Henry Standen from the state. I've been working with him for the course of the last year, and I'm here on behalf of the Snooks.
Okay.
So I'm just going to share my screen.
All right.
And give me 1 second. So this is the plan that's provided as the supplemental to the packet that the board was given. It shows the existing lot area of the Snook and then the parcel that ChemReal has discussed removing. You can see from the exhibit, everything's at the top, classic. The exhibit that Dave's provided, this is the bigger picture of how this lot is shaped and the lot line that will be abandoned with the aerial footage. Obviously, we can go ahead, we can add that 100-foot wetland buffer to comply, but it, to me, is a relatively straightforward. Both parties have agreed this is the best area. It is primarily upland, but does fall within that buffer.
Questions? Could you take your arrow and kind of outline the piece that's being added to the smaller lot?
So it's this portion in the back. I don't know if you can. My docking station is right in the way. There we go. So it's this portion in the back is the new lot line that's to be adjusted. The lot line that's to be abandoned is right here. So it is a rectangle that would be conveyed out and conveyed to the Snooks from Chemreal.
Okay. So it's going to give them a lower 40.
Correct. Yep.
Any questions? Let me get my little chart up here, see if any hands sticking up. Oh, Jen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was wondering, Ms. Morrill, if you wouldn't mind doing the same thing with your mouse and just kind of indicating approximately where 100 feet is, since we're not seeing it on the plan, and so we can get a sense of where that buffer is. And then also, as you're doing that, maybe, I know the Conservation Commission, I didn't exactly read the conditions that Dave, or didn't exactly hear the conditions that Dave said, but it was something about like understanding the restrictions in that zone. So I was wondering if you could explain what the restrictions of use are in that 100-foot buffer.
So the piece that's being conveyed out is 163 feet wide in this direction. So that buffer will come somewhere into this middle. I have to go and pull to be able to describe what the restrictions are for the 100-foot buffer. Dave, is there any way you can help me out with that?
I mean, anything would be the conditional use permit, and any proposed development within the buffer would need a conditional use permit and meet the setbacks or any state requirements because it's a prime wetland and our regulations. I need to know more. In the we'd know all that information once a building permit, if a building permit was being requested for anything within the buffer.
And I don't believe that it's their intention to develop the back area given the 100-foot wetland buffer that's in place. I think it's just to add to their ability to more so have a backyard present.
I mean, if you look at it, it's 163 feet wide, so it's not hard to do the math that the buffers overlap.
Right.
At least in some places.
Yeah, this area in here would have a total overlap, and then there's just, I think there would be probably a small section in here that would be viable outside of that buffer, but I'm not even 100% sure of that given the distance off the proposed property line here.
Dave, can I ask you, are there restrictions on vegetation removal within the 100-foot prime wetland buffer?
Yes. There are, but they are not asking for any lot line adjustment. I understand the questioning, but they're not proposing any clearing.
Okay, yeah, I just for my own curiosity wanted to be clear as to what the restrictions were. Thank you.
Robin Tyner has her hand up.
Robin does. Robin?
Yeah, I guess I'm just a little uncomfortable with maybe lack of specificity on justification, since especially given the waiver conditions that we have to meet.
There are no waiver conditions you have to meet. There is no conditional use being requested. This is not changing anything or removing any vegetation. It is simply adjusting a lot line.
No. Adding property to an existing lot.
From an existing lot. So if anyone wants to do it, whether it was the current owner or the owner now after the lot line adjustment, they would need the proper permits and approvals to do so.
Okay.
Aaron?
I just want to make a quick comment on that. It's unusual for us to get these without an intended use being identified, and I think that's why there's some confusion on the board's part.
Yeah.
But this is a conforming lot, and what they're doing is they're taking, it looks like backland for them from another lot. Both lots remain conforming, so it's about as straightforward as it comes. In fact, I would imagine it's almost one that we don't even have to see, but this is a pretty simple case here. So I just want to comment that at this stage, with no use intended, I do not think it should be necessary for them to go through the cost of showing the 100-foot buffer. There should be something on the plan that indicates that it's acknowledged. But if you have a home and you have a lot that's within a 100-foot buffer, they don't make you go and we don't all have to go and get plans of our homes and surveys and show all this stuff. So because they're doing a lot line adjustment, conforming to conforming, I think that would be a bit of a unnecessary condition on our part if we impose that. That's just my feeling.
Yeah, I agree with that. Any public has any questions, Dave, that you know of?
No, the one attendee does not have their hand up.
Okay. Any other questions on the part of the board?
If the attendee would like to speak, you can use the raise hand button and click on the raise hand, and we will acknowledge you and allow you to speak.
Seeing none, then let me close the public session of this hearing and bring it back to the board to further discuss and or make decisions. Board have any other questions or concerns? Dave, you gave us a motion?
Hold on, let me open up a panelist here. Aaron, that leftover hand or?
Aaron's?
No, I did raise it again. Thanks. Thanks, Lang. I just wanted to comment that if the applicant ended up wanting to do something that required a building permit, that they would have to come in front of Doug Eastman, and Doug would likely require them to mark that wetlands boundary on a plan. But like Dave said, it's pretty tight if you look at, if you just take a scale and look at what it would be. So I just wanted to make sure everybody's clear on that he could impose that at that time too, if he felt it was necessary, depending on what they would come forward with, if anything.
Yeah. Gwen? Your hand is up?
Oh, yep, here I am. I understand the different views on putting that buffer line on the plan, and I'm just and I'm not an engineer. I don't do this for a living, but I would just ask the question to the applicant real quick if it's a fairly quick and straightforward process just to put that on there. I mean, while they've got the plans and they're working on this, it seems like this might be a great time to just take that extra step and have that marked on the plan.
It is fairly easy, and I'd have no problem doing it. We'd show it from the beginning of 9011 where the culvert comes in. We'll show a 100-foot offset, and then how that will merge with the two wetland lines on this side as well. And that's not a problem to do for as a condition of approval.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
But just to chime in on that, I mean, that's the current zoning ordinance and the current setbacks. These things can change. This recording gets recorded and it stands the test of time. It stays in the registry as a subdivision. So generally you do avoid putting those buffers on there because of that very reason, because they change over time on what the zoning amendments do. So I passed on the condition of approval. The board can do with it as it may. I just thought I'd offer that insight as well.
Good point. Aaron, is your hand up again?
Nope. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I've closed the public session, I believe, and the public did not want to speak, so are there any questions on the part of the board?
Pete Steckler has his hand up.
Pete Steckler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, thank you. So Dave referenced that this is a prime wetland. Is that stated on this plan anywhere? Because what's that?
No, it is not.
And is that worth, I guess this is a question for the board to consider, is that worth noting on this plan that it's a recognized state level prime wetland with required buffers, which is different than town zoning?
I think it's the same, as with the local. I mean, that can change. They can change what the definition of prime wetlands are. You increase the buffer of a prime wetland, and they can come in and say, no, my recorded plan says 100. It's not 150 feet. Whether it'll pass muster. I know regardless of what you put on this plan doesn't make the regulations unenforceable. All the regulations that are in place, if they propose to do anything, if they propose to clear, or if they propose a building permit, all the current wetland setbacks and wetland regulations and prime wetland setbacks will apply.
Okay.
Regardless of what you put on the plan.
And whatever those setbacks are at that time.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So maybe following up on that, hopefully the applicant is notified through this process that there are restrictions on, because the representative of the applicant noted that they want a bigger backyard, and if they have intentions for clearing, there are limitations on that currently.
I think that would be a good condition of approval that you could propose, is just, letting the applicant know that, there are restrictions and wetland buffers, and restrictions on that land before any clearing can be done. That would be a good condition.
Okay.
Show something, on a plan that may change, may not be the best idea.
Great.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Well, I'm ready for a motion. Don't all speak at once. Pete Cameron, you awake tonight?
I beg pardon? You want a motion?
Yes, please.
Well, I need to go back and understand about this condition that we've just been talking about. Is that to be included here? And if so, what language, Dave, are we going to employ for that?
Which exactly condition are you talking about? So,
Wetlands notification one.
yeah, I don't know. I was just trying to formulate it right now myself, if the board so choose.
Mr. Chair, I would just chime in that I would be in support of that condition, if Dave can word it in a way that I think, or maybe Pete can offer a suggestion of how to word it, but I think that what Pete was discussing sounded good.
I agree as well.
Property
The other
subject,
10 speaking.
property is subject to existing zoning conditions? Something, I don't know.
maybe that the property,
Okay, Dave's got something.
oh, all right.
Can I try this? I think. The planning board recommends the owner of the residential lot become familiar with all state and local wetlands rules, as any clearing of any vegetation may likely trigger a conditional use permit or state approval.
I think that's good.
I'm sorry, I'm not comfortable with that.
It just puts them on. We're not requiring anything, Peter. We're just putting them on notice that it.
Well, but once we start down the road, then we're going to have to start putting it seems we're just adding adding something that's not required. And I'm a little troubled. So, Mr. Chair, I'm not going to make that motion because I'm not necessarily sure I concur with adding this language to this particular approval.
Mark Vitor has his hand up, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just feel that this is a lot line adjustment at this point, and that if the applicant is going to do anything, for instance, like put in a pool, they're going to have to go through the permitting process and the proper channels, just like any other homeowner. So to put any kind of conditions to force them to become more knowledgeable with their property, I don't feel like that's setting really a good precedent at this point. So I think if we vote on just to approve it as is. That's just my opinion.
Well said.
Okay, Mark.
While I don't disagree with that, I just wanted to clarify it. The way I wrote the condition doesn't force them to do anything. It just is a recommendation. I would not write that to force anyone to do anything.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, go ahead, Jen.
Unless anyone wants to discuss this more.
No, go right ahead. We need to move along here.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I move that the request of Daniel and Karen Snook, PB case number 21-3 for lot line adjustment approval, be approved with the following conditions. And I would add the condition that Dave just read along with any, are there any standard conditions?
Yeah, there's two. A DWG file of the plan shall be provided to the town planner showing all property lines and monumentation prior to signing the final plans. This plan must be an NAD 1983 state plan, New Hampshire FIPS 800 feet coordinates. And two, all monumentation shall be set in accordance with section 9.25 of the site plan review and subdivision regulations prior to signing the final plan.
Mr. Chair, I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are we ready to
discuss? Are we going to discuss?
Yes, sure. Discussion.
Dave, can you read your condition again, please?
I certainly can. The planning board recommends, doesn't require, recommends the owner of the residential lot become familiar with all state and local wetland rules, as any clearing of vegetation may likely trigger a conditional use permit or state approval. I think the intent behind it was just making them aware that there are wetland rules that exist, and this likely falls within state and local jurisdiction.
It's pretty benign. I think it's helpful.
Okay, we're ready to vote? John Gruder.
Can we repeat the motion? I'm not sure what's included in here now. Jen, was that
Would you like me to repeat it?
Well, was that with David's addition or without?
Yes, I'll just repeat it. I move that the request of Daniel and Karen Snook, planning board case number 21-3 for lot line adjustment approval be approved with the following conditions. And those are the three conditions that David just read the 2 standard conditions and the 1 recommendation about the jurisdiction in the back.
Thank you. Thank you. And I vote yes.
Okay. Jen Martell,
Yes.
Gwen English,
Yes.
Molly Cowan,
Yes.
Pete Cameron.
No. Because I don't agree that we go in the business of recommending what they already know about. So I'm voting no.
Got it. Thank you. Aaron Brown,
So I'm going to vote yes, but I understand what Peter is talking about. And I have reservations regarding that condition, but I'm not willing to strike down the approval of a very simple lot line adjustment on that.
okay. I vote yes, I think with the same comment that you made, Aaron. So anyway, that's a 6 yes, 1 no vote, and it carries. Thank you very much. All right, let's see what is going on here. Other business, old business, no other business.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, board.
Hey, you're welcome. Thank you, Kate. Let's see, master plan discussion. Not exactly sure what that is, Dave.
That's a standing
Okay.
item. The master plan oversight committee met and decided to look at, due to the kind of the past practice of the board with yield plans, they decided to maybe take a look at the yield plan language and maybe try to make something more simpler for everyone to understand and the board to apply. And nothing's being proposed, and obviously if they came up with anything, it would come to the full board for review and action if it made it to that point.
Okay, thank you. Field modifications.
None requested.
Bond and/or letter of credit reductions and releases. None handled? None. Okay.
Yep. And that was a vote that I do those unless I kick them to the board. I do have one item though, that the April 8th, we did not receive any applications for the April 8th meeting. I did ask the chair, to, ask the board to see if, you wanted to hold a meeting or workshop anything or discuss anything, or you have the option of canceling the meeting.
I thought we might talk about that a little bit. Aaron, sometimes we've had conversations about we need a good work session for some of these, whatever they are, that we've tucked in the back of our minds. And one thing that kind of comes to my mind is sort of an overview of the master plan, where we are and what we've accomplished with it. And we talk about it a lot, but so where are we anyway? And we do have the committee that's working on it very diligently, and appreciate that. But I think maybe reflect on that would be good. Other thoughts? We're not trying to come up with busy work, but we have an opportunity to meet and have a little work session. Aaron, do you have anything to add to that or thoughts?
Yeah, Lang, I echo your sentiment on that. I think that in terms of we are a planning board and we often aren't doing a lot of planning together. We're doing reacting to applications that are put in front of us. So in the interest of planning, I am on the Master Plan Oversight Committee, and Dave mentioned the yield plan consideration, which I think it would never be bad to get feedback from our entire board on any of the things that we discuss. And I think that yield plans have created a lot of challenges for our board, for abutters, and for applicants. And I do think that something we should be considering how we handle those now and in the future. And even if it's just merely to reinforce that we're comfortable with how we do it, but have a better board-wide understanding as to that. So that one to me is a big one. We've gotten through a fair amount. I do think I feel like the master plan's discussed frequently, but it may be because I'm on that committee.
When you get together, yes.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts from anybody? We have 2, 3 relatively new alternates that may have questions they'd like to talk about. Thoughts,
As a new alternate, I'd be more than willing to meet and discuss anything, just to get more familiar with the process.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would too. I would welcome that. Thank you.
Okay.
Sounds like we have a workshop.
I think so. If there's other particular topics you come up with, either give Dave or myself a call. We have to, let's see, Dave, we have to post the meeting, but we don't have to post it tomorrow because it's not it's a working agenda. Am I right, Dave, on that?
Yeah, nor do you have to, there's no applications, so you could just say workshop discussion. You don't have to, say every topic you're going to discuss. You could just say workshop session if, to the extent we get topics, we could list them. If not, we don't have to.
Yeah, yep.
I'll be prepared to give an update on the master plan and the action agenda and highlight some of the things. I think a lot of the things we've done since it was adopted, I'd be happy to do that. I'll just be brief, because I want not just to be a presentation, have an opportunity for the board to, engage in a workshop session amongst yourselves.
Sure. Yep.
Glenn, can I ask a question?
Of course.
Is there any time frame for potentially having our meetings in person again? I know Exeter has recently voted that public schools are going to be pretty much open for everybody beginning of April, which is right around the corner now. Is something similar going on?
That's above. I'm not involved in those discussions.
Above your pay grade? Is that what you're saying?
I will find out where that stands, but
I'm just curious because I'm hoping that most of our members on the board at least are either healthy or vaccinated or soon to be.
Yeah.
Right. And then meetings it's just everything's so much better just to do in person. The dynamic.
Yeah.
It's just, there's just no question, hands down. It's just, I do it a month ago. I do it 6 months ago, but
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the board's patience in this process. Somehow we've leaned together and done it together. They're supposed to be doing it together, so we'll get ourselves a together ward.
I'll check into it. I think that the town has followed kind of the CDC guidelines, and when they allow a certain amount. Right now, when you have an open meeting, though, anybody can show. It's the board can be vaccinated, but maybe people that want to come aren't. So I guess I'll raise the question internally to see where we're at, and maybe provide the board an update at the next meeting.
Okay, that's good.
And then maybe there's even an interim between the board and anybody coming, or I don't know, maybe you have to show that you've already had it or vaccinated or have a mask or, whatever it is. But
yeah.
Yeah, Robin, that's a good point. We've had my youngest son plays sports at Exeter High School, and they've allowed fans. It's limited to the parents, and you have to go through, you got to do the questionnaire, you get your temperature taken. You obviously can't be in a quarantine type or exposed situation, and our meetings don't generally pack them in. So it's more our board than it is the audience. And we do have a distance we can easily adhere to. I agree with Rob, and it would be nice if we can get back to that, and people that aren't comfortable, maybe we can accommodate that with them being zoomed on still. I don't know. It might be fun to figure out some kind of hybrid.
Yeah.
I think since it's the use of the, public space in the building, I think it's up to the select board ultimately to determine what, they feel is right for the community. And our, the staff and so forth. So and the town manager. So I'll bring it up and see where, try to get you some feedback.
I think
Okay,
there are lots
appreciate
of
that.
precedents in other towns in New Hampshire and frankly all over the U.S. But I think there's a lot of precedents to look at.
Pete Cameron.
Nancy Belanger. Maybe we should be telling them about what's going on with the housing committee.
If the chair would like me to talk about it, I would love to.
Yes, that would be a good one.
Okay, so the Housing Advisory Committee.
Oh, no, but this would be at our session
Next time.
Next time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
You can prepare a illustrated lecture.
I will.
But I think some significant things have been going on.
They have. I agree.
Good.
Exciting.
Good.
Exciting conversations.
Yes.
Okay. So it's still an open agenda. So when you come next time, if you have some thought like that, bring it along with you. We'll go from there, and we'll limit ourselves to what?
Yeah, we'll do a tag team.
8:30, 9 o'clock, something like that, so we can have an evening coffee or something. Okay. I think that's it.
Is it that time of night?
It's that time of night.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, that's all we need. I assume that there are all seconds out there. So thank you again so much for your patience and interest in this service to the community and keeping Exeter what it is.